Hello and welcome to Business Lunch. I'm Nisha Podar and with me as always is my co-anchor Pavitra Parekh. So Pavitra, good afternoon, and market started on a buoyant note. Looked like on Friday it was better off than the rest of the week, but not so much. By the lunchtime, to completely off steam, Nifty 50 at the low point of the trading session, and currently the levels that we are seeing of 17,434, much lower than the high point of the day, which was almost close to 17,600 levels. All right, so 82 points cut on Nifty 50 at the moment, but Bank Nifty, that is slightly outperforming the key indices, but still in the red comfortably, 0.2% down at the moment. Mid caps a lot more resilient lot today on the flat line with the negative bias, advanced decline ratio in favor of the declines, but with mid caps holding much better than the key indices, well, the advanced decline ratio is not as lopsided. Well, Asian Paints, Divi's Labs on my screens are some of those Nifty 50 companies which are doing well today in trade. Pavitra.
Hi, Nisha. So, it has been a wobbly day of trade ever since the beginning, right? Even when we started in the green, it looked pretty shaky for our own markets, but it's clearly done the worst, and this is right since the word go is the Nifty metal pack. Right now, the losses have even widened. It's at the low point of the day. For the week, the metal index is down almost 6%. For the year so far, that's in 2023 so far, it's an over 18% kind of cut that we've seen. So a lot of the larger metal names will be up on, up on your screen, and you can see the kind of cuts that have come through. These are the larger ones. Take a look at some of the mid caps. Those are looking quite weak as well. The other big sectoral loser for this year has been the PSU banks, right? We have been talking about this, 15% down for the year. So a lot of those stocks also doing quite poorly in today's session. What's holding up today? Not too many stocks, but some of the PSU names, so the likes of Coal India, NTPC holding up, and some of the real estate names as well. Of course, this is after severe selling pressure, but for now it's holding up. Reliance also adding a little bit of support for the markets today. But that's what's going on in terms of the market action. We'll come back to this, but kicking off with the top story is that there's big relief coming through for Zee Entertainment. The NCLAT has stayed the insolvency proceedings which were initiated against the company by IndusInd Bank. So my colleague Ashmit is here. He's been tracking the story closely, and he brings us all of the details. Ashmit, for now, a relief coming through.
Indeed, for now, the relief is interim in nature. Let's keep in mind that on 22nd of February is when the NCLT had directed for initiation of insolvency proceedings against Zee as well as Citi. Now, what's important is that Puneet Goenka moved the NCLT. In fact, the arguments were heard today. The arguments that had been put forth by Zee essentially rested on two grounds. Number one is that Zee argued before the NCLT that, look, as far as the corporate guarantor aspect is concerned, Zee is a corporate guarantor not for the entire debt amount that has been taken on by Citi, but in fact only to the limited extent of tranche payments that have to be made for interest repayment. And that is the first leg of the argument. The second leg of the argument is, and this Zee argued, is a violation of principles of natural justice, which basically leads on to say that Zee was not allowed a hearing before the NCLT had directed for insolvency proceedings, that arguments were not heard. There was not a fair hearing. Zee could not defend itself, could not make its submissions before the NCLT. And this second argument appears to have struck a chord with the appellate tribunal, the NCLT holding that at no point did Zee forfeit its right to argue, to make its submissions, and that is an aspect that is bearing on the mind of the appellate tribunal, even as it stays the NCLT order. So that is very clear. The NCLT order directing for insolvency proceedings against Zee has now been stayed by the appellate tribunal. Notice has been issued to IndusInd Bank, and thirdly, this case will come up for hearing on March 29th. Now, importantly, IndusInd Bank, there are two aspects here. IndusInd Bank had asked for some form of deposit against this loan amount. That prayer has been refused. The second aspect that we'll have to watch more closely is whether or not IndusInd Bank takes the legal remedy of appealing against the stay order before the apex court. If this fight travels there, again, all bets are off. It could be more pain in store for Zee, but that's, of course, for a later date, depending on whether or not IndusInd chooses to move the top court. But for now, certain relief coming in for Zee. That big concern on the insolvency proceedings being stayed by the appellate tribunal. Back to you.
All right, very well summarized, Ashmit, but a few dates to watch out for, as Ashmit highlighted, whether there is appeal by IndusInd Bank. The next hearing is on 29th March, and I must also state that Zee as well as Sony is in the process of the merger approvals as well. And that next matter in NCLT is also slated on 9th of March. What happens to that needs to be seen. Zee, of course, the stock is perking up to 200 level, but if you really see a 1 week chart, 206 levels it dropped from when indecent action was really explained and insolvency proceedings was highlighted in this particular case, which has been stayed. And a statement just coming in from ZMD as well as CEO Puneet Goenka, and I quote, "We respect the decision taken by the Honorable National Company Law Appellate Tribunal and remain committed towards protecting the interests of all the stakeholders, and our focus continues to be on the timely completion of the proposed merger," end quote. So that's the comment really coming in from Zee Entertainment. Big relief as of now.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Big relief for now. Like like you were pointing out, the next hearing is on the 29th. So that will be key to watch, of course. But with that, let's also move on to the latest from the corporate world. EY has honored the best business leaders at their annual Entrepreneur of the Year Awards. KP Singh, Chairman Emeritus of DLF India, won the Lifetime Achievement Award at the event. So Shireen spoke to him on a whole host of topics, including his personal life. Let's listen in.
I started firstly my education in madrasa, in a small madrasa in Bulandshahr. From there I jumped off. When I did the graduation in Merit College. And from there what happened? There I became a horseman because I learned it. Completely different. And then I went to aeronautical engineering in England. Completely different. And from there, because I was a polo player, horseman, I switched on for selection by senders for Indian Army. I came from the Army. I enjoyed Army, everything, 9-10 years. Look at so, madrasa to aeronautical engineering to go to, is completely, when you come to the Army, I enjoyed every bit of it. I stood first in the academy in Dehradun, and I enjoyed every bit of my, till it came around that when I got married, I was very lucky to get married to a wonderful family and a great lady. They had only two daughters, not sons. So father-in-law prevailed upon me that it's high time that instead of playing polo, instead of come and share a bit in business. So that's how I came. Then I started manufacturing business, electrical motors and Willard battery. Thereafter, the family pushed me in 1975 to revive DLF again. DLF was totally closed. Yeah. So how many different twists and turns you have taken? But the biggest thing for me, it's question, if a challenge, most difficult was, how do you buy land from feudal families and how do you integrate it? It's the most difficult thing. And that too on credit, by the way. When I had no money. Yeah. So credit can only, money, land will be given to you on credit, only one. When an owner has explicit confidence and faith in you, in your integrity completely, so I had to earn that thing. Not working, I had to really earn the faith of people, but it happened. Gurgaon is a classic example. Yeah. Gurgaon would not have happened if I were not able to, the government never helped me to buy even a piece of land. I had to do it myself. It's my own thing. Now today you see how many, more than 12 lakhs is exponentially growing every time. There's a win-win position. Half the revenue of Haryana state comes from Gurgaon. And as you know, this type of people saying that there's a catalyst for bigger employment. How many people's homes are there? How many new generations have come around to bring businesses? So that's why a city like this, Gurgaon, is a pace setter, catalyst for creating more employment, for ensuring more income to the state, and for ensuring good homes, recreation, hospital, education centers. It's only a good city will do, not clustered up city, not the way we were doing before. So I hope they can do it. I just appeal to them to change, to relook at their urbanization policy.
And you can catch this entire conversation today at 5 p.m. only on CNBC-TV18.
Tuned into Business Lunch here on CNBC-TV18. Now, the G20 meet, the first under India's presidency, is currently underway in Bengaluru, where finance ministers and central bank governors from all of the G20 countries have congregated to discuss a whole host of issues, including, of course, climate change, the impact of the Russia-Ukraine war, and debt growth, as well as inflation concerns in developing economies. Apart from central bankers and finance ministers, Geeta Gopinath, the deputy managing director at the International Monetary Fund, United States Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, as well as European Central Bank President Christine Lagarde, are also in attendance at the summit. So those are the visuals coming in. But let's actually now go over to Parikshit, who is standing by at the venue of the summit to bring us the latest. Parikshit?
Well, yes, the Prime Minister addressed the inaugural session today, and he called on all the G20 leaders to work towards bringing stability in the global economy, and also reigniting faith in global financial institutions and global bodies as well. At the same time, he said that the G20 discussions must be focused on the most vulnerable people, as COVID-19 has had a once-in-a-century shock to the global economy. Having said that, there seems to be a lot of discussion inside, heated discussions inside on the draft communique. The communique, we believe, which is the outcome document of the G20 meeting, has been circulated 9 times already. There is no consensus on it as yet, especially with reference to the text of the Ukraine war and debt restructuring. There seems to be strong differences between countries over the debt issue, and also how the Ukraine-Russia war will be contextualized, how it will be condemned in this. Let me also point out that the Russian finance minister and China's finance minister are not attending this meeting. They have their deputies over here. So there still seems to be lack of consensus on how these two issues will be approached in the communique. The G7 wants to strongly condemn the role of Russia, and Russia will not accept that kind of wording. So let's see what happens over the next few hours. And India would like to build consensus on these issues. But clearly, the reform of multilateral development banks, reaching a resolution on debt issues, especially in countries like Sri Lanka, Zambia, also transparency when it comes to debt in emerging and developing economies. These are some of the critical issues that are being discussed inside by finance ministers.
All right, Parikshit, thanks so much for enumerating all the top of the agenda items at the G20 summit there. But remember that Prime Minister Narendra Modi also addressed the summit earlier today and laid down and highlighted the important aspects to be discussed with the summit. Let's listen into what he had to say.
The theme of our G20 presidency also promotes this inclusive vision. One Earth, one family, one future. Excellencies, even as the world population has crossed 8 billion, progress on sustainable development goals seems to be slowing down. We need to collectively work to strengthen multilateral development banks for meeting global challenges like climate change and high debt levels.
All right, that is the Prime Minister. But with that, we have to get into a short break on the show. When we come back, it has been 1 year since the world...
Welcome back. You're watching Business Lunch. No respite in the markets at the moment. Still 71 points cut on Nifty 50. Bank Nifty also in the red. But at the moment, IndusInd Bank has seen some buying from the low point of the day. Now on to some global developments. It's been 1 year since Russia invaded Ukraine, and the conflict seems to be far from over still. Now tensions continue to rise between Russia and the West, and amidst this, well, China has come up with a 12-point peace plan to put an end to the war. Chinese plan includes a ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia and a gradual de-escalation to pave the way for peace talks. It also calls for an end to Western sanctions against Russia, and another key point in peace plan is the establishment of humanitarian corridors to evacuate civilians. Now, the peace plan also tackles the issue of grain blockades and also steps to ensure the export of grain. However, it is unclear how effective the proposal will be in changing the ongoing situation in Ukraine.
All right, so that is the latest in terms of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. We will keep tracking the story and bringing you details on the show through, as the days go by as well. But for now, we're going to wind down on this edition of Business Lunch with the news that the markets are still completely in the red for the week so far. It's a near 2.9% cut on the Nifty. Thanks for tuning in. Mid Cap Radar up next.